Hi, guys. This is Ron Johnson, a life and leadership coach, motivational speaker, health coach, and welcome to another episode, Life's a Shuffle.
And this is Gloria, your life coach. Welcome to another episode of Life's a Shuffle. Today, let's talk about peer pressure. Since we're all, I know, very familiar with this. So, if peer pressure is the direct influence on people by peers or the effect on an individual who gets encouraged to follow their peers by changing their attitudes, values, or behaviors to conform to those of the influencing group or individual. It's a type of feeling that one must do the same things as other people or of one's age and social group in order to be liked or respected by them. And it is often seen as something negative. Now, I've realized that there is six type of peer pressure, which probably didn't know this until I did some reading on this, and I'm sure Ron did too. So the six types of peer pressure are: one is the spoken peer pressure, which, when asked, suggests or persuades, or otherwise directs another to engage in specific behavior. Then the other one is the unspoken peer pressure. So, when exposed to the actions of one or more peers and is left to choose whether they want to follow along or not. And then there's the direct peer pressure, and it could be spoken or unspoken. When put in a position of having to make an on the spot decision, then there's the indirect peer pressure, which is subtle. And what it is when you react to something you either heard or something that you've learned as a way to gain acceptance. And then there's the negative peer pressure, which is when one finds themselves engaging in behavior that goes against their beliefs and simply because they want to be accepted. But not all peer pressures is negative. There is also, and the last one is the positive peer pressure. Um, so obviously, it's not always a bad thing. So positive peer pressure could be which can be used to pressure someone into acting better or pushes someone to be their very best. Um, I've seen all types of this peer pressure with the adolescents. I do work for a school, and I've seen this mostly happening at school with the teenagers. Um, Peer pressure is a powerful influence, and like I said, most especially on adolescents. And one of the reason I believe for this is they spend more time with their peers than their parents. And kids are often they often give into peer pressure because they want to fit in. Um, but I think that peer pressure is not only with the kids or the adolescents; it's also within the adults. So, with this said, what do you think about all this, Ron?
You know what? It makes you wonder, why does peer pressure even exist? Like, what is the root cause of peer pressure? If you really think about it, the 6 billion people or more on the world, not all of us had the same thumbprint. Okay. So it means that all of us have the same thought process, not all of us have the same journey. But when it comes to peer pressure, it's really the desire to fit in. No one's to be left out. So if someone's being picked for a game, they don't want to be left out, as the last one picked, right? Because then it looks like, oh, no one wants me. I feel bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, reason why you also got peer pressure is you want to avoid rejection, social acceptance. You got to go to this school because everybody's going to this school. You should go to that college because everybody's doing it. Hormonal, peer pressure to be intimate, to have a girlfriend or to have a boyfriend, whatever it is. That's pressure there. I remember going to school. You would hear the guy talk about, oh, this girl did this to me. She did this. Oh, I slept with these girls, this girl. And you get the pressure that I got to get sex too, right? So that happens as well. And also, another peer pressure can be its lack of structural home and safety. Means that, you get some situation where there's a broken household. So a lot of times youth, especially youth, they go out there and they find people on the street, gang members or other family members to make them feel whole. But there's one thing we kind of forgot here, and this is kind of one that no one really talks about, and it's really, you can't Google it unless you Google it specifically. So you Google peer pressure, you can't really Google it specifically. So Race peer pressure. Peer pressure comes in all forms and fashion. It can be your height. It can be you want to be better than somebody else. But the root cause of all peer pressure is to fit in. So let's talk about skin color, for example, peer pressure. I remember going to school when I was a kid, and I would hear this terminology, and everybody of either culture, race, faces a subcategory out of peer pressure. I talked about this before on another podcast. Was you're not black enough. You talk white, right? So here we're discussing another peer pressure. So I had to try to change and start using the N word. So I had to use the N word. I'll say it again. I had to use the N word just so I can fit in. Then one guy tells me, Ron, you know what? You're not even saying it right. So the N word, there's a certain way to say it. I never heard someone say there's a certain way to say N word. I mean, obviously, you can pronounce it like niche and niche, right? It means some people say niche and some people say niche. So I can understand that. Or, tomatoes, tomatoes. Okay, I understand that. But saying the N word, I mean, that is the most derogatory term you can use ever. So I got that as well. And it was always, you know what, you're not black enough, or you know what, and other things like this, peer pressure. Now, even as an adult, I face this as well. People automatically think because I'm a black guy that I have to like sports, that,
Or
that,
that you
that
could
I have to like
sing.
football. Like here, if you're talking to me and if you say, "Oh, I'm not into football, we don't watch that much," you're like, "Oh, that's weird. You're a guy. You're black." Again, here's the basic structure of society. It's not just peer pressure, because peer means someone at the same age level, but doesn't mean an adult. So you also face adult peer pressure as well. So if you're 15, you mean a 15-year-old, you're facing peer pressure. You also face adult peer pressure because it's like you have to conform to a norm. So if you're black, you gotta like football. If you're black, you gotta be good at football. If you're black, you be good at basketball. If you're black, you know how to dance. If you're black, you gotta like what is it? Fried chicken, collard greens. Okay, what if I don't like that? I'm an individual. See, that's what I mean by race peer pressure. It's just those things. I remember 2 years, actually 5 years ago, I was told this by someone that's close to me. I won't name any names. They said, Ron, you moved to San Jose, so you're whitewashed and you have a job. I don't know how moving from San Diego to San Jose means I'm whitewashed and I have a job. I have no idea what whitewash means.
Mhm.
I have no idea. Don't you have to have a job to sustain living? I mean, just to pay bills, just to have a roof over your head, just to have a car. I mean, that's part of in this universe. You have to make money to pay bills. So because I have a job, I'm whitewashed. And that's what I mean by another thing by skin color peer pressure. You have to be a certain skin color. If since your skin is a certain color, you have to act a certain way. And that is wrong.
And that's with every race too, it's a stereotype, right? And I think also nowadays is, however, this may have something to do with the media, or we are conditioned by the media. We are made to believe by what we are exposed to that, let's say, lighter skin or white has more power or is more privileged. So if you, let's say, have a job and that you speak good English, you're white or you're whitewashed. And again, that goes with other races, right? So let's say if Asians are looked at, oh, they're Asians, they must be good in math. How do
Yeah.
you know that? How do you know that? I'm not good in math. I hate math. I really do, or you're Asian and you're whatever, a certain way. Um, No, I'm sorry. It just doesn't always go like that, but it is a stereotype. And that's, the things that we looked at and what we are made to believe based on what, again, either what we grew up around, our environment, or just what we see.
You know what? This stuff really comes from a one root cause. Root cause of all of this is one, what our home life is. Two, what we subject ourselves to. Three, what we heard. Four, The top 1 through 3 becomes our belief system. So if someone sees a TV and they see a black guy playing basketball, playing football, some kind of sports, their assumption can be, oh, all black people play sports, are good at it. Or you see a music video, whatever it is, on YouTube, whatever, MTV, going back to the 90s, of course, as a black person dancing, Soul Train, those that remember that out there, that's guy probably going back with 80s almost. Oh, they're black, so you must not have dance. And that's what formulates, I call it the system out there, the machine. These machines create constructs in our mind, which in our mind we have a belief. Well, if this happens, you must be this. And this is where I really get frustrated with everything that's going on currently. I'm really just agitated because people don't realize one important thing. The important thing is I'm a human being. When I look at myself in the mirror, I do not see a black man. I see Ron. I see a human being. I don't see a skin color. So when I walk through this world and I see different people, I don't see skin color. I see a person. And these judgments that we formulate are all come from belief system. I've met people since I've been out here in Bay Area, and it's another one. I'm just referring to black. Ron, you know what? Where are black people at? I got to be around my black people to feel good. Now, granted, maybe in their belief system, being around black people makes them feel really good. Maybe that's what they need to have. But I may not be able to resonate with that because it's not what I believe. I don't believe in a skin color. I believe in human being. I believe in being a humanist. I believe in being non-judgmental. So I don't need to be around a certain race to feel good. I need to be around people to feel happy. And being around people allows me to experience something I didn't experience. See, when you're around different people from different backgrounds, forget the color, you're learning something new in that whole construct of just being a human person. You're learning, exchange information, you're talking and giggling and laughing, right? Because at the end of the day, no matter what race you are, you laugh, you have a heart, you have a lung, you have a brain, you have consciousness, you have awareness, and you put your pants leg on one time. So it doesn't matter about the race. But we as human beings, we make it about the skin color. Then we make another subcategory into skin color with how you should behave. It was really disheartening as a kid that those out there that are children right now going through what they're going through in school. I mean, you got the pressure from getting into the best colleges, get good grades, make sure you do what the teacher tells you to do, trying to play sports, extra activities. And at the same time, you got to worry about, okay, if I'm the skin color, I have to try to fit in. And that's what happened to me as a kid. I don't think things have changed now, but me as a kid, it was so detrimental trying to fit in. So you hear my voice because now I don't want to fit in. I just want to be a person. Forget the skin
Mhm.
color. But that peer pressure to be somebody was so huge. Like it came to a point where peer pressure to fit in, being an introvert as I was a kid growing up, was so hard because you had to fit into a group. When you go to school, high school, let's say, you have to be a group and you have to fit in with that group. Now you got some people that don't. I'm just going back to what I experienced in the early 90s is that you have to, around here, amongst people, be in a group. You can't just be a person showing play basketball. I mean, just think about Eminem when he first came to be a rapper, or Vanilla Ice. I mean, this is a name, just two people that I thought about right now. Oh, they're white. How they know about rap music. They don't know how to sing, they don't know how to dance. They became stars because people want to make judgments, and that's the thing is judgments based upon what your personal beliefs is and filters are. I mean, so Gloria, what do you think about being judgment? I mean, when you think about peer pressure and you think about skin color, what comes to mind?
A lot comes to mind, and because you do know that I work for a school and I work with a lot of kids, and I hate to see this. I see all types of peer pressure at school with different kids, and I feel it really, really frustrates me. Um, because one is that I know what it feels like being peer pressured. So, and then also I know I'm not going to lie, I'm going to admit I was once, when I was younger, I had, pressured somebody to do something that this person didn't want to do. But I did that out of, I don't know, now that I think about it, maybe just to have fun, you know. But things have changed, right? But the peer pressure is still there. And when it comes to race, it's there. And it really, it frustrates me a lot, because here I am trying to, make an impact, trying to change things, and trying to make, having them, the kids, understand that we're all human beings. No one should be treated a certain way, just because this person is Asian, this person is black, this person is Mexican. We're all still human being. Or it's, but I feel like sometimes it's me against the society, right? And I know I've heard this over and over from some of my students, that it's not that easy, because trying to fit in is part of growing up, or that age, and especially in the middle school. They feel like you have to fit in and you have to be a part of certain groups. Whereas here I am trying to tell them, no, you don't. You could just be your own person and be yourself. And
So true.
yeah, but at that age right now, it's hard for them to understand that, because, not only do you get that at school, but there's the social media that they're exposed to. Um, I mean, let's talk about colors, right? There's a lot of pressure among the teens of color to perform poorly in school. Let's say some kids could be made fun of for making good grades. I have seen that, because they are viewed, or they have a certain reputation, like that certain type of, let's say, ethnicity or that color does not usually make good grades, right? Because they don't care about school. But when they do, they could be made fun of for that. And or kids put down their peers for, quote, acting white. If, let's say, they pick up a book and they start reading, or they use good English, they're whitewashed. It's not funny. And I think that, I'm sorry. So, I've noticed that some of the students, or some of these kids, misbehave because they are often responding to the peer pressure.
What came to mind when you thought about getting good grades, peer pressure? So when I was getting straight A's and straight A's, I know 4.0 GPA, I was so desperate to fit in. I remember this one guy, in was it high school, middle school, I can't remember when. He's like, man, listen to me copy your paper. And obviously, it was a black guy, and I was intimidated, and I wanted to fit in and be a part of that. So I let him copy my paper so he can get an A on the test.
Hmm.
And he said, "Man, let me copy the paper instead the N word. So let me copy the paper N word." I was like, "Okay, I'll let him copy my paper 'cause I want to fit in." I was so just pre-programmed with this machine I always talk about, because we're pre-programmed. See, human nature being, we don't want to be an outcast. The only time you want to be an outcast is when you get to a certain state of mind and awareness where it's like, wait a minute, I don't have to be a part of this or part of that or part of this group or part of that group. I can just be a human being. Even better. So I remember back then is that I still want to get good grades, but to fit in, be a part of somebody, I want to be nice to somebody else to copy my paper so I can fit in with them.
Hmm.
You see how that worked there, Gloria? Is that I
Hmm.
just want to fit in so much for peer pressure, let
Hmm.
him copy my paper so I be part of the team.
Yeah,
And what happened at the end of the day? He used me and I didn't fit in.
exactly. And that happens a lot. That really does happen a lot right now with that age group. Or some that, let's say, if you have straight A's, you're doing really well in school, but you don't want your peers to know that. So then you act a certain way, that you're a badass, and that you're not doing well in school, and you don't do your homework, you don't study, but behind all that, you really are. But you're just not showing it because you want to fit in. So you try to be somebody that you're not. And what sucks about this is that as adults, we have that awareness and we're aware of it, and we can easily move away from that, right? Because we recognize it, and we know that we don't need to be somebody to fit in, We could be accepted for who we are, because if you have one person that doesn't like you, you have 10 others that love you for who you are.
Hmm.
But unfortunately with the kids, it's hard for them to understand that right now. And it's going to take a lot of um, experiences that they would have to go through until they recognize that and they realize that. But fortunately, there are those few that knows that and realizes that, and they just kind of keep moving on and minding their own business,
Hmm.
and they don't give a crap about everybody else.
They don't. There's another peer pressure out there I just thought about is we never discussed this economic peer pressure.
Ah.
What I mean by that is that let's talk about kids peer pressure first. Is that if you can't buy a certain shoe because your parents can't afford it or they don't, like I talked about before in the last podcast about the Michael Jordan shoe, my dad could afford it, but he wanted to buy it because people were dying over these shoes back in Chicago where he's from. So now here's come economic peer pressure. So if you're not wearing a certain shoe, you're not deemed worthy.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're not wearing the Michael Jordan shoes or the Nikes or whatever shoes popular at that time in school, you're not wearing those, you don't fit in. Oh, look at those dirty shoes. I mean, you must be poor, you can't afford your shoes. But in some cases I was witnessing back then is that even though they're wearing the top name brand shoes, their parents are broke, live on welfare in Section A. But as a kid, you just don't see that program. You don't see that. But it's another economic peer pressure. So guess what starts happening? You start stealing. You start robbing. You start trying to. I remember when I was 18, I got two credit cards back then. I got a Visa credit card and a Master credit card. Within about 6 months or a little bit longer, I maxed out 6 grand. 6 grand because
Wow.
I was trying to buy all these clothes and shoes so I can be more popular so I can fit in to what's going to happen. So it's kind of funny. Even that year I did that. I mean, I even brought stereo system in my car. I had the boom box, I had the upgrade neon lights. I had the whole thing because, I wanted to fit in. And this is way I didn't know how to deal with those kind of emotions that were coming up. And,
Mm-hmm.
there's no awareness back then like it is today where people actually talk about it. It is a subject back then. Oh, you're just going to school. You just got to deal with it. Just deal with it. Was kind of how they brush things off. But back then, I even won most fashionable for my high school yearbook, so that was pretty cool. But I spent a lot of money just trying to buy these shoes, and I got to the point where I was buying a different shoe every day because I finally had a job, which I worked at Foot Action, which gave me 30% off shoes. So
Yeah.
it's like cool. I can buy all the shoes I want, and like 50% off the clothes. I'm like, great. You buy anything you want. But the point is economic peer pressure to fit in and have the right clothes, have the right shoes, go to the right college.
Yeah.
If you don't, it's just like, oh, you're poor, you're broke, you're filthy. Oh, look at your shoes. I bet your house looks like that. I bet your car looks like that. What kind of car you drive? All that became a thing. And adult peer pressure is the same exact way. People assume that because you got a job, you should get a nice car, or you get promoted, you should get a nice car, or oh, you drive a Honda Accord. Why don't you get a BMW? It look much better on you.
Mm-hmm.
But why? Why does it have to be a thing? I'll give you one example. So I don't wear any Nike shoes because my feet they just don't work well in those shoes. So another judgment, unlike I know my awareness now, but I bring experience to share to my audience. When I worked at Foot Action, they sold pretty much the hip shoes, which would be the Nikes, the Michael Jordans, the Chuck Taylors, any popular shoe that was more of the hip hop scene back then. They were selling them. So you get someone that comes in, and at the time they were, let's say, white. They'll come in, and first thing I ask about is Asics. And, oh, we don't carry those shoes because they didn't at the time because that wasn't popular, right? Because even in certain stores for Foot Action, we have different shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So the stores that are more like hip hop neighborhoods would get better shoes than we would get better shoes because we were the north north of San Diego, which was kind of considered more of the white neighborhood. So we get different shoes then. So even businesses program certain types of shoes and where to put them just because, well, if we put these Michael Jordan shoes in the store, they might not sell. But that's the point. So someone comes and look at the Asics and, we say we don't have them. And my buddy and I would laugh, say, oh, well, that's white people's shoe. Don't buy this shoe. As an adult now, all I wear is Asics. So how I formulate this judgment based upon my limited views of the belief that the Asics brand of shoes are for only a Caucasian white person, that became my belief. Up until I try out those shoes and realize, damn, these shoes really work. I
It's
like them.
comfortable, right?
This is cool. Nike
Mhm.
suck. I don't buy Nike shoes anymore. But the point is, I'm giving you peer pressure from when I was a kid going to school to when I came and a person working at a job, even and also adult peer pressure. What kind of car you could drive? I remember I had this boss of mine, not the one I talked about before that's racist, but another one. This guy was a show off. So he was telling me, hey, you know what? You're making a lot of money. You know, not a lot of money. See, what a lot of money really exists, it's eye of the beholder. 50 grand, someone can be a lot of money. $100 million, someone can be a lot of money, and vice versa. $100 million can be not enough money to somebody. They want more money. Okay. So he said, oh, you should buy Mercedes Benz. You know, you should be buying these kind of cars. You should dress in this way. I had a boss telling me this, giving me peer pressure. I didn't know what he was doing at the time. He was leasing cars. So that's how he was constantly getting a new car. And what I knew at the time, he's always having a new cell phone. So I'm thinking, man, this guy must be rich, have a lot of money, must be making good money, be my manager. What he was doing was at Fry's at the time, because he's a manager, he'll go down to the store, return his old phone, get credit for that phone so he can buy a new phone. But my mind was always giving a belief system to that and thinking that all it was what I see was that they must make a lot of money. But he was doing things on the backside that I didn't know until later on. And that's really just crazy how certain things we can formulate an opinion or judgment about something we don't know all the facts. Or he just think he's rich, has a lot of money, but all he's doing is leasing cars. I'm thinking he's buying a new cell phone because has a lot of money, but all he's
Yeah.
doing is going down to Fry's, returning the old one he's had for 6 months, and buying the new one. That's all he's doing.
It's all based on judgment, and that's how it is. We're always judging, and I know that it's part of human nature. We tend to judge. We can't help it. But at the same time, we don't really know the backstory of all that. We don't know the story behind it. Like, you talk about like growing up with trying to wear Jordans and trying to fit in. I remember growing up, I had hand-me-down clothes. Mind you, I'm the only child. Okay. So people would look at me like, wait a minute, she's the only child. She's got to be spoiled. And I've heard of a term of a one only child syndrome. I've never heard of. Okay, I've but like I said, my mom was a single mom. There was a lot of things that we couldn't afford, and I had hand me down clothing from my cousin, and even shoes. But I remember sometimes I would go to school when we have parties or school parties, whatever, and sometimes I would go to school and I'd have to remember if I wore the same outfit that I wore at last school dance because I didn't have a lot of clothing. And again, it was a hand me down. So I was made fun of because if I was wearing the same outfit I wore the last school dance, it'd be like, oh my God, you're wearing the same outfit again? Don't you have any other clothing? No, I went to, let me say this. So I went to, growing up, when I was in elementary, I went to a private school. Okay. Although I've never really had a good relationship with my father, that was one thing that I know that to make up for it, he had me go to private school and paid for it. Right. So that my mom and I can't afford it. We were barely making it. As far as clothing and shoes, she would just have enough sometimes to buy me clothes and shoes. But because we couldn't afford them, I would have hand me downs. And it's so funny how I got judged back then. And now I'm thinking about it, how that really affected me to where sometimes I don't even want to attend school functions because I don't have a new outfit to wear, whereas my classmates do. And I don't want to be looked at or made fun of. Like you're wearing that again, you wore that last week, that type of thing.
Wow.
And yeah, it was crazy. And I remember that obviously that had affected me as I got older. And then when I, was able to work, I started working. I think that was probably one of the reasons why I strive to work harder. And then that as a teenager, I started working at an early age, just a part-time job so I can buy myself new pair of shoes, like, some cool outfits and just trying to fit in. And that was crazy, but it's different now with a lot of the kids now. The kids are more. I would say there's a lot of kids now that are more fortunate, and some of them don't realize that. And then they look at other kids and they put them down, you know? But then they don't know, again, they don't know the story behind all that. Like a lot of my classmates doesn't know the story. Why, I could be wearing the same outfit. And they don't even know why I was at that school. Just because I was going to a private school doesn't mean we're rich. I was there because I was told to go to that school.
That's very, very interesting there about that. Is that how we formulate constructs in our mind and judgment upon small things. I remember at school dances, speaking of school dances, I hated going to school dances because it's like I see everybody else dancing so well, but I think dancing well at the time, it's like I can't do the same thing they're doing, so I'm not going to dance at all. So like, I'm sitting against the wall, warming the wall up because I don't want to go out there and dance. So I would avoid going to school dance because I'm afraid, I'm being made fun of. I'm going to go on the school dance floor. You're expected because you're black to be able to dance. That was a thing back then. If you
I was
can't
going to say
dance,
that you're
yeah,
black, you should be able to know how to sing and dance.
right. If you can't do, you knew the one. Next, that Saturday school dance happens. Monday comes school. You made fun of. Oh, you can't dance. What's wrong with you? It's just all these things will come up, and it's really, really, really sad the fact that we do this to each other.
Right.
We Instead of having that mindset of just pure curiosity, ask empowering questions, ask curiosity questions, challenge things that don't make sense. We don't do those things because we just don't know how to. And that's really the sad part about this whole thing is that we're facing peer pressure just from peers being the same age. Like you said,
Hmm.
how you speak, how negative peer pressure, positive peer pressure, direct peer pressure. Now you got to face racial peer pressure, right? It's no wonder why suicide rate in school goes up because you face economic peer pressure as well too.
Hmm.
So what do you do? Like, how do you how do you not let that become you, like what you believe? So, like I told you before about the Michael Jordan shoes and clothes, stuff like that. What actually happened just now, thinking about it right now, this moment, is it create a lot of desire of want. So I spent a lot of my young adult years spending my money on things I want in order to make me happy. So I'll say it again. I spent my young adult years spending money on things that I think will make me happy. If you ask our listeners, Gloria, let's help them out. If they're facing this in school right now, or and as an adult, what would they do? How would they get through it?
I know that what I say may not be as easy it is for kids to do than it is for adults because again as adults we have more of that awareness, and it's easier for us to walk away from it. But I would say too, sometimes it's okay to say no, and it's okay to say no without any explanation, or maybe you can give an excuse to make things easier, like in terms of pressure of having someone do letting you do something that you don't want to do and that you don't believe in. And how about having friends with similar values and beliefs? Surround yourself with those type of people. And at times having them around you, it's easier to say no if someone else is saying it with you. Um, let's see, pay attention to how you feel. If something doesn't feel right about a situation, then it probably isn't. Follow your guts, and like I said, these are probably so much more easier for adults to do than kids because kids face a different, it could be the same type of peer pressure, but it's different for them to handle it. um, it takes a lot of growing up and a lot of awareness for them to move away from that because right now the adolescents are at this fragile age of trying to figure out who they are, who they want to be, and where they want to fit in, or if they do want to fit in or not. And it's rare that there's that one teenager that just minds his or her own business, and they just want to kind of just do their own thing. And I have seen that, and I do have a student who's like that. She doesn't give a crap about anybody else. She's just minding her own business. And that I'd love to see. And if I would love to see every teenager to be that way. And another thing is, I would say, how about, if you have that certain desire, like you with the Michael Jordan shoes, right? And you've always wanted it, or in order for you to fit in, you have to wear Michael Jordan shoes. How about just looking at that and use that as a motivation to someday I will get that. I will get that someday. Maybe not now, but you can use it to motivate you as you get older, that you will get there and you will get what you want someday. That you don't have to try to have that right now to fit into a certain group.
That's certainly true. I was just thinking about what you said earlier about how you had to work hard to buy the things you wanted. So it gave you a work ethic. For me, it had a desire to buy things I wanted to make me happy. And even though it's two different things, but you see how ripple effects will happen throughout your whole life, and how ripple effects really can affect you for years. I mean, 2 or 3 decades, 30 years, they can affect you. It wasn't until I got to my 30s or early 30s where I was like, wait a minute, if I got that new BMW, would they make me happy? No. Okay, then why have it? So, because the idea was if I got what I wanted, then I'll turn around and get the girl. So I always get the next levels. If I got this, then I can get this, and I can get that. And these are all outer things.
Hmm.
The first thing to realize here is that it's okay not to fit in. It's okay not to be like everyone else. Because the beauty about being an individual is that even though it's easier to fit in, I'll say it again, it is of course easier to fit in, and we don't fit in, it sucks. You get isolated. But when you don't fit in, as whatever the fit is at that time for you, that yourself is a human being and you are special to the world. You have a unique power within inside you that nobody can ever take away from you. Inside you is the potential to be anything you want in this world. Inside you is the potential to share your gifts to people that actually want it. Because if someone rejects what you have to say or who you are, they're rejecting who you really are. And just trying to fit in and be like them, it only hurts yourself in the end. It's okay not to fit in. It's okay to share unique individual creativity to the world. What I mean by the world is that the world is huge. There's over 60 billion people that exist, and it's getting bigger. Nowadays, we're at a perfect time where we have emails. I didn't have that in the 90s, except to late 90s at AOL startup. That was the only thing you had. Social media. Travel is easier nowadays. I can talk to someone in a wholly different country and be okay with that. Got Zoom. You got all these wonderful things that you can share to the world that you have inside you. So the idea being that you don't have to or you can't is means that there's opportunities right now that I didn't have as a kid where you can share everything you want to the world. Or if that is not working, take a partner. Sometimes having a parent, a close friend, a cousin, a therapist, a life coach also will help you to unveil what you really are and just talk about it. What's going on? What's happening? Because allow you to alleviate the stress that you're feeling right now in your body and in your mind. Because when you can't fit into something, you try to figure out a way how to fit in. You get frustrated, you can't figure out the way, or it's not working, or you can't afford it, or this list can go on and on and on. But take a partner. Partner with somebody that really has your best interest. Talk to them because then you can get what's inside you off your chest. So that way you feel much better. So, guys, as always, thank you for listening to another episode of Life's a Shuffle. It's a pleasure. I hope you guys understood there's a difference between peer pressure. Peer pressure is adult, there's skin peer pressure beyond just the physical of peer pressure and adult peer pressure, but to fit into a certain race or to be like a certain race because of judgment. And when you're able to release that judgment you're feeling right now in your mind, You open up different doors you never thought were possible. So as always, you can find me under Ron Johnson Life Coach on Instagram and Facebook, because obviously I'm trying to be the creation or creating change that I want to see in the world today.
And keep in mind that, let me give you something that I tell my students a lot, that just be yourself and be who you are. Because if you have one or two or few people that don't accept you for who you are or doesn't like you, you have many others around you that loves you for who you are and accepts you for who you are. And just remember that. Again, this is Gloria, your life coach. If you have any questions or if you'd like to reach out to us, share us your stories, please do contact us. You know where to find us. You can check out our website. My website is www.glorialifecoaching.com. My information's there. Or my Instagram is Gloria Life Coach. Again, thank you for listening and tuning into another episode of Life's a Shuffle.